Welcome to Logan Startup Hub's event, Inspiring Meaningful Innovation. I'm Brad Apps, co-founder of EC Connect and Logan Startup Hub. This event is to highlight some great things being done in life sciences. We have been holding out on this event, but have decided to bring it to you virtually through this webinar. This is our first webinar, but we are looking forward to welcoming people back through our doors at the hub here. As mentioned, this event's about life sciences, and we've partnered with Life Sciences Queensland to bring two great companies to explain what they're doing, a bit about their journey, and some of the goals for the future. While we wait for the presenters, I'd like to give you a quick background of what we do here at Logan Startup Hub and EC Connect. So EC Connect specialises in providing business support systems, mainly to the telecommunication industry, but expanding into IoT and utilities. We started as a hobby in 2006 out of my father's garage and moved to becoming a leading provider of telecommunication software in Australia. The system is a very large platform which drives the back end of a lot of telecommunication companies in Australia. We have comprehensive billing and payment solutions, as well as data management, end user messaging, and a lot of functionality around SMS, around payments, around reporting and analytics. And we believe our growth has been mainly around customer service and relationship management. We started out as a dedicated software company where each client would have their own version of the software. And we've now become a SaaS solution provider, providing our software through a cloud-based platform, which is a multi-tenanted solution. This makes it easier for us to roll out changes, easier to manage, and much more streamlined and efficient for our clients. We have an international presence, but we've remained located here in Logan with our headquarters here in Underwood. And in 2017, we decided to give back to the community by opening up part of our space as the Logan Startup Hub, the first co-work space in Logan. The facilities that we have here at Logan Startup Hub are dedicated desks and hot desks, meeting rooms and boardroom, and collaborative meeting spaces and an open plan kitchen area. This is where startup companies can come and work alongside a successful established business, and we target the solo business owners and entrepreneurs, as well as local residents not wanting to go into the CBD, and people who want a flexible space as well, somewhere where they can access 24/7. So now I'd like to welcome Nagaraj from Life Sciences Queensland. He'll run through a bit about Life Sciences Queensland for you, give you an introduction of their Catalyst program, and then we'll get on to the presenters. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nagaraj Gopiseti. I am the Deputy CEO of Life Sciences Queensland. And we are very happy to be partnering with Logan Startup Hub to be coming to you with some of the life science opportunities and success stories or good startups that are emerging in Queensland. And I'm going to just very briefly talk to you about Life Sciences Queensland and our Life Sciences Catalyst program that might be helpful to you, and hopefully we can connect afterwards on the program. Who we are. Life Sciences Queensland, we are a peak industry body for representing the Queensland life sciences sector in anything biotechnology related to feed, fuel, and heal the world. We represent those sectors and undertake a number of key activities for promotion of Queensland life sciences. We also promote Queensland opportunities on a global scale, where we promote Queensland innovations, business opportunities, investment opportunities to the world, and help in attracting those opportunities and facilitating collaborations to Queensland members and the industry as a whole. And as you can see, we have a very simple but an elaborate strategic plan where we build on three different pillars. Is one, capitalizing on existing strengths and investments that Queensland government has already made for the life sciences sector. And we know this from the Peter Beattie era to current ones. There's been significant investments from the Smart State to Advanced Queensland, and we are helping to build and capitalize on those investments. At the same time, looking for new opportunities. And with new opportunities, I'll slowly talk to you about our Catalyst program that we have implemented or initiated late last year. And other one is sustain, support, and build our sector, as what I alluded earlier, through advocacy and promotion. Eventually, what do we want to see? Our big vision is to see Queensland life sciences sector to be doubled in size, both in terms of number of jobs and dollar value by 2030. So coming to Catalyst, as I mentioned, it is a new opportunity for Life Sciences Queensland, and I'll just take a couple of minutes to talk to you about what this program is, which is specifically aimed to help and support startups in the life sciences sector and help entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs to grow their companies in Queensland. So this is a Queensland-based program. So we are looking at how do we provide the support they need at the place where they are located and minimize them to be relocating interstate or elsewhere, and make sure they grow, create jobs in the local regions. So how are we doing that? The essence of Catalyst is how do we activate the existing networks that Life Sciences Queensland has. Using those networks, we want to accelerate the beautiful ideas that our entrepreneurs have, and we want to eventually achieve success for these startups and new innovations. We are working very collaboratively with like-minded organizations, like we are partnering with Logan Startup Hub, where we can leverage the strengths and resources of each other with the single objective and establish networks to cultivate the next generation of ideas. And we want to become a gateway to the innovation spectrum by providing a personalized roadmap for every opportunity that comes through our door. And I want to emphasize the importance of regional, because we want to work with regional Queensland, unearthing and nurturing life sciences talent in rural and regional Queensland, and give them that access to resources and networks which otherwise they would not get by being in those regions. And that's the unique value proposition that we bring to the table, is the personalization and regional outreach through LSQ. So what are we offering through the Catalyst program? And we want to create a pipeline of opportunities to accelerate and develop innovations and work with emerging enterprises to embrace their knowledge. And we do that by providing, through mentoring and providing access to key opinion leaders in the life sciences sector and key opinion business experts who have done this and have taken life science businesses to the market, and giving our emerging companies with access to mentoring from these world-class experts so that they can learn from these mentors and become successful in their own businesses. And we have a pool of national and international experts. And whilst the essence of pitching or business plan across cross sections is very similar, but in life sciences, the journey from an idea to a success is a long roadmap. And we want to make sure people are communicating the right value propositions, they're communicating the right story, and they're telling what exactly they're trying to solve, a problem that currently exists. And the investments that they need is much more than the usual traditional other startups need. And for this, it's not just one person show, it is a collective network that needs to come in. And we, through the LSQ networks, we give them access to a global markets and resources so that they can understand where their market is and work towards meeting those objectives of how they want to enter into those markets, both nationally and internationally. So they're the key sort of salient features of Catalyst. And just to conscious of time, just want to bring to your attention, that's some of our early participants till end of last year. And we're currently working with about 21 plus companies. And we've got an amazing pool of startups that are both working in digital health, diagnostics, medical devices, functional foods. They're working in ag technology, clean energy, biofuel. So you can see the broad breadth of the type of companies we are working with. And we look forward to working with more life science-based companies in Queensland. And as I said, we are a small organization ourselves, and we can't be a solution to everybody. We work with a number of partners. We are funded by Advance Queensland, so I would like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the funding and support we have received from the Queensland government through the Advance Queensland initiative and the team within the innovation team, Office of the Chief Entrepreneur. I would like to say thank you to Leanne Kemp and Craig O'Kane, the two who have been supportive of the life sciences industry, and we have tag teamed in regional Queensland to tell what we have to offer and how we can help them, and we've done that together. So with the team at Life Sciences Queensland, I've got my CEO, Claire Blaine, who runs the organization. I'm the deputy CEO, but I run the Catalyst program as the lead. And then we have Lockie, who does all the stakeholder engagement, and Nadine, who has come on board with us recently, is our marketing and communications person. So that's us. We have our contact details, my phone number and email for you to reach out to us, and happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Nagaraj. That was a really great introduction, and we're very lucky to have a couple of your companies presenting with us this evening. So we're very proud to have these guys representing Life Sciences Queensland and vice versa. So it's great to hear that you help companies stay in Queensland, as in bringing what they need to Queensland so they don't move to other locations or other countries. On the reverse side, do you also promote Queensland and promote life sciences in Queensland to companies outside of Queensland to get them to move or set up in Queensland?
So from an engagement point of view, we've always promoted opportunities for companies to come up and set up base in Queensland. And LSQ is one of the many portals of entry for companies into Queensland. Obviously, companies, if they reach through us, we help them, but we work very closely with the various government departments, especially state development, where they have the industry attraction team that works tirelessly to provide what incentives are available for companies if they relocate into Queensland. Collectively, we provide that good information data pack, and hopefully that helps them to make that decision much easier to relocate into Queensland.
What's one tip or bit of advice that you could give to somebody who is, say, leaving uni or who is leaving school wanting to go into some life sciences field?
One tip I would definitely give is to not just focus a lot within the academic environment, but to come out of the academic environment and start networking with industry and industry bodies and other organizations that facilitate that collaborations and networking opportunities between academia and industry. And that's where people will understand there's a different world beyond academia. Academia teaches you to get into industry, but again, it is who you know, what you know, and how you position yourself with the relevant decision makers in industry that creates opportunities for yourself, either through employment, or it might give you an opportunity to become more creative and start your own enterprise, or and that happens more when you are outside that academic world and you're talking to people in the industry or in businesses, and that will help you to become a more holistic individual.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you, Nagaraj. Now I'd like to welcome Ashley from EarthOffset. She'll run through with you about her journey, story, vision, and goals for the future.
Okay, great. All right. Yeah, hi, I'm Ashley Baxter. I am the founder of EarthOffset, which I started technically the beginning of 2019, but I'd been kind of thinking about the concept for a couple months before then. So basically what we're about, I'll just kind of provide a bit of context. Here we go. So our kind of core mission is that reducing emissions has become our most pressing challenge. Maybe not quite right now while we're in the middle of a pandemic, but that's really what motivated me to start EarthOffset. The problems that we're targeting are, well, firstly, that 3% of global emissions is actually caused just by sending our organic waste to landfill. So that's things like your leftover food waste, all of those kitchen scraps, and green waste, things like that. Relatively speaking, for the fact that's a massive percentage of total emissions from something that's so preventable. Another problem that we're targeting is that half of our food supply is actually grown using artificial fertilizers, which are not only terrible for the environment, but they're also actually running out. The artificial fertilizers that we mine are a non-renewable resource. So we kind of identified very early on that there was a super simple solution to both of these massive problems, and that is composting. So compost is an accessible, affordable solution to some really big environmental issues. But why aren't we all doing it then? If it's so simple, it should be, every single person's getting it done. We kind of identified that there were a few barriers to entry for people to start composting, and those are pretty much these three. A lot of people, particularly nowadays, are confused by what it takes to be a composter, what it entails, how much you have to do, how much you have to spend, and it's just, there's too much information out there for people to wrap their heads around. It's also super inefficient. Composting, surprisingly, is actually an incredibly complex biological process, and people tend to think, you just throw your waste in and that's sorted. And it's actually way more sophisticated than that. And then finally, because people are confused, because they're doing it wrong, it tends to get really unappealing. Like we've all seen a really bad compost bin where it's like stinks and it's really, it's a mess. We won't talk about that, but that's one of the big reasons why people don't want to compost. And so we kind of, knowing that it was such an incredible solution to the climate crisis, we set out to find a way to get everyone doing it, recycling 100% of our waste, using it as a natural fertilizer. And this is what we came up with. So we want to make composting approachable, efficient, and fun. And we're doing that with Monty, which is our IoT compost monitoring device for smart homes and cities. So basically, you can insert Monty into any existing compost setup. It continuously tracks decomposition data, including temperature, volatile organic compounds, and moisture, which we then transmit to our cloud analysis model, where we analyze that data for insights into how to manage your compost. So it's a smarter way to do things. We're really just bringing, all of those advancements in technology, whether it's IoT, analysis, data aggregation, into your composting. We're also developing a software platform that you can access through a mobile app that makes it just so accessible to the everyday composter. So it delivers you really simple, understandable instructions on exactly how to manage your compost. It's adaptable to every kind of composter. So whether, you're just a stay-at-home residential, everything's done in the backyard, or whether you're, a large-scale commercial composter who's wanting to optimize their operations. We also recognize that composting is not depending on who you are, it may not be the most rewarding activity. You're just kind of putting it in the bin. So we found a way to actually make it engaging by gamifying the carbon offset that you're creating through your composting. So Monty can actually calculate your real-time carbon offset that you're preventing through your composting, and kind of think of it like Strava for compost. When you we then take that number and then gamify it with awards, rankings, all of those things to keep people motivated with their composting. So it'd be like, your composting for this week, it was the equivalent of planting a tree. That way people can continue to be motivated and inspired to continue composting. We also see this as the chance to really implement a decentralized infrastructure around composting. So rather than you having to drop your waste off, at the end of the driveway, it gets collected by a massive diesel consuming truck, you can actually find local composters in your area and drop off your waste with them, connect with them, engage with them. And so not only are we having an environmental impact with the composting, we can also build communities around it. And finally, we are also building a massive educational infrastructure on composting, organic decomposition, all the agricultural stuff as well. There is so much information out there on composting, but there is no single source of truth that aggregates it and delivers it customized to the kind of person and composter you are. And so that's exactly what we're doing. Those are the main features of our software platform, but there is so much more that we want to include. We see the future of organic waste as fully circular, and we're enabling everyone to take part in it. And that's not just, like I said, restricted to residential backyard composters. Whether it's your suburban community garden or a school, I very firmly believe that every single school should have a compost operation. They have the space, they have that opportunity for education. There's also things like apartments, shared work and living spaces, and then finally public council areas. All of these have the potential to do on-site composting, which doesn't just have an environmental impact. It also reduces expenses associated with waste. It provides a free stream of natural fertiliser that a lot of these places can replace their existing landscaping costs with. It just has so many benefits to these markets that we eventually want to target. For the residential solution, it's a pretty simple kind of B2C consumer model. It's just we sell the Monty device. We have a basic software platform that they can access, gives you all those features that I just mentioned. When we start moving into those more enterprise markets, which are things like schools and like I said, the shared living areas, all of that, we're going to be offering more enterprise solutions. So that's like custom packages, including all sorts of other composting infrastructure, I suppose. And it's going to be a more bespoke solution for those customers. Now, there isn't just those features I mentioned before in the software platform. We also have the potential to tap into numerous recurring revenue streams. So different features like exciting gamification, freemiums, and things like that. Affiliate product sales, so in referring people to additional compost purchases they might want to make. And then the last one, which I think is probably the most exciting to me, is the waste behavioral data that we can actually sell on and engage with. It's nothing nefarious. It's not like we're selling your personal data, but understand we're going to be aggregating literally a world first collation of organic decomposition data. There is nothing of the extent that we're going to be able to collect by continuously tracking thousands of composting operations. And there's the potential to provide that to, town planners, academics and commercial composters who want to use that for their own purposes. And so that's just a really exciting potential future business avenue. So this is our team. Obviously there's me right there. So I studied business management and IT at UQ. I've also, it's funny, I actually did a whole bunch of different career paths, and I volunteered and I tried a whole bunch of different stuff before I decided to pursue this. I always knew that I wanted to do something in environmentalism, but I never really knew anything about compost before I got started. So yeah, if you told me 2 years ago that this is what I was going to be doing, I probably would have been a little bit like taken aback because who wants to work in compost? I'm also supported by Phoebe and Alex. So Phoebe's kind of second in command. She heads up business development, does all that. She's got an extensive professional services and legal background. Alex is our head of engineering, and he's absolutely brilliant. He's been helping develop the Monty hardware device and all of the electronics and design that goes into that. We're also, so we've got a small core team, but we're also supported by our product partners. So Joseph Mark is our digital product partner, and they're an incredible design and development agency based in Brisbane. They're actually like so genius. They provided so much in their services and advisory, and it really just helped us kind of prepare our foundations for building out a large scale software platform. Also, another product partner in industrial design is Clandestine. They're another Brisbane-based company, and basically we wouldn't have anything of Monty without them. You know, when I first got into this, I underestimated just how much goes into developing a mass manufactured hardware product, and having this incredibly experienced, competent industrial design firm on our team was just unequivocally useful. Yeah, so that's really the team. And that's the business, and that's the product and the technology. But how exactly did we get here? Because it's been quite a journey to get all of that stuff together. So basically, like I said, I started this at the beginning of 2019 officially, but before then I'd really been thinking about, I learned about composting and the potential of it around halfway through 2018. And I just kept thinking about it, and and I was about to graduate a semester later. So I was like, oof, probably need to find a job or figure out something to do once I graduate, so I'm not just like kind of floating around. I found out about compost. I found out about its potential, and the more I was looking into it, the more inspired I was to pursue it as a career. So UQ offered this competition. It was called Sustainable Innovation Student Challenge Award. I was offered through one of the engineering centres, and I applied for that. I didn't really know if we were going to get it, because the first prize was $25,000. So I was kind of like, oh, that's a lot. I'm not sure if, I don't know. So I suppose I applied without really considering the actual reality that if we'd won, what was going to happen. We did win, which was insane. And so I suddenly had $25,000 sitting in my bank account, and I'm like, oh God, I've got to do something with this. Which doesn't sound like a bad problem to have, but it was a very confronting one. And so UQ also offers a startup accelerator, and it's got like a startup hub, kind of like what's at Logan. And I got more involved in that space, and I ended up with that initial funding, applying for their iLab accelerator. That was amazing. That was like, I cannot endorse enough how critical it is to have like a supportive network around you that has already gone through all the problems you've gone through. Yeah, we've since then done a lot. Like you saw previously, we've designed and developed Monty. We've done all the scope and the UI for the software platform. We've started onboarding people, and so kind of and we've also done a lot of testing and validation of the technology, which I think, especially if you're doing hardware or kind of advanced analytics component in your product, you need to ensure that you've sufficiently tested and validated it. So we finalized that design, and I suppose at the end of last year was really when we're like, okay, it's time for the next step. what we're doing is we're going to be doing a 100-unit launch. And so basically, oh yeah, that's next month. And so basically we're locally manufacturing 100 Montys, and we're going to be selling them to kind of influential people and organizations in the composting space, which is going to get us ready for a crowdfunding campaign in July. Maybe a bit after, but that's going to be kind of our mass market launch to get Monty out to those residential, I call them crazy composters, but the ones who are just really passionate about composting and are really excited by new technologies in the space. And yeah, that's when we'll be moving on to mass manufacture. As a little kind of like insert, in order to finance that 100-unit launch, because hardware is expensive, apparently, as I probably should have been a bit more prepared for. We actually did a pre-seed funding round, just recently closed it, doing all the commercial stuff, which was very helpful, and that's going to get us all the way to the mass manufacture. It was challenging, especially during right now, you know, like it was funny, we opened the round before the reality of the pandemic started to hit people, and so, you know, it wasn't that difficult to have those meetings and to have those discussions back then. But as it started to become real that, oh, we're actually going into recession, it got difficult. So if anyone wants to talk about that, then I'm more than happy to answer any or tell any horrible war stories. But yeah, so that's kind of what we've done. That's kind of where we're going. That's been our whole journey so far, and it's been pretty insane, not gonna lie. So yeah, this is kind of our big goal though. This is what our mission is. Like, this is, you know, the 5-year, 10-year plan for what we want to do. It's not really just a product anymore though. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, but these are really what we're targeting and what we're wanting to engage with as a company. You know, we're very committed to this mission and to these tangible KPIs and goals that we want to reach. So we think that it's incredibly important that we keep that at the core of everything we do and every decision we have to make. So, because, and this is always like the ending, 5% of our total emissions could be cut. Like, it doesn't sound like much, but on a quantitative scale, 5% of all our emissions from simply composting is an incredible accomplishment. And that's what we're aiming for, because, you know, like, it's composting. It's not that difficult. It's something that is accessible and affordable to literally every single person on the planet. And all it takes is putting your waste into a different bin.
So just say if I've got one of these devices in my compost bin, and we do have a...
Do you have a compost bin?
Yep. So I'd love to be...
Oh, do you?
I'd love to be a guinea pig or a tester.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'd love to be one of those 100 initial people if you want.
Absolutely. I'll add your email.
Take part in that.
Perfect.
But when you get the data, do we get the feedback on an individual basis about what we're doing, as well as do we get it like on a regional basis as well? Do you do aggregation like that? As
in like all the composters in your region?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so that's what the gamification. Oh, okay, I see. Do you mean like how good your compost is compared to other people?
No, not necessarily. Just it'd be good to know sort of how well we're doing as an individual. So how many, how good our composting is as an individual, but then also as how good Brisbane is, say, or Logan.
Yeah,
is, yeah.
That's actually a really interesting like concept. In the ranking, I suppose, on the regional level, we have kind of just like done that through the carbon offset tracking. But I think that's actually a really interesting future metric to compare of, like, because, you know, you can actually quantify how high quality someone's composting operation is. And that's not necessarily just through the carbon offset. So yeah, we haven't actually included that in this one, but I think it's a really interesting, sorry, I'm hearing the echo from your end, I think. But it is a really interesting functionality. I'll definitely want to look into that more.
Okay, excellent. And so are you targeting just Australia at the moment, or are you going to be selling this globally?
So for the 100 units, yeah, it's just going to be in Southeast Queensland. We were thinking of doing a little bit more through Australia because there's quite a few really exciting like permaculture farms and stuff down in New South Wales, but probably not going to do that now. For the crowdfunding campaign, though, we're definitely targeting a global market. There are a few restrictions with crowdfunding campaigns and selling internationally. You know, there are different hardware like standards you need to meet for different markets, and you need to take into account like the countries that you're targeting through your distribution plans. So the countries that we're going to be making available to purchase through the crowdfunding campaign, it's likely going to be North America and Europe and a few countries here and there. But that'll be kind of decided strategically based on our marketing that we do prior and where we're getting the most feedback, if that kind of makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, once we reach, we're able to we've got our assembly line all set up and we can start doing full online sales. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a global product.
Can I ask you a question about maybe it's an urban myth or something about composting? Is it
Yeah, of
true
course.
is it true that you shouldn't put your potatoes and onions in the compost?
See, all of these things, it's a bit more like contextual. So like obviously with potatoes and onions, the problem you get with composting is that they may start sprouting because they're in a really good environment to do that. And that's not necessarily a problem like per se. If you're actually regularly maintaining your compost and you're starting to get those sort of sprouts, then you can just like break them up and like deal with it that way. If you don't, and you wouldn't want to go putting in like 100 kilos of it in your compost, because then that's going to end up having like those flow on effects and you're not actually going to be decomposing. It's going to be leaching up all the nitrogen into growing those sprouts. So it is going to be really contextual based on like the size and capacity and state of decomposition in your composting, if that makes sense. And it's kind of the same as, you know, when people say you shouldn't put citrus materials in your compost, it's like, it's going to depend on what your compost is, like how mature it is, what the temperatures you're hitting are like. Like if you've got a really good compost pile and it's like consistently getting above 60 degrees, you can put anything in there. Like not anything, but it's going to be a lot more forgiving than if you're doing cold composting and you've got those periods of time where things like potatoes and onions could be sprouting and could be damaging the decomposition process.
No, that's great, actually. And then can you just provide us one piece of advice or one gotcha that you would say to anybody who's got an idea and thinking of turning it into a business? Can you think of anything?
Be in it for the long game. Like, I think that, and I felt like this too, that's probably like, because there's going to be so much advice on other things, but the stories you read in the media of overnight successes and these people who, like, you know, they had a brilliant idea and they spent a few months coding it up in their backyard and in their garage and then made $1 billion from it. Like they are just so few and far between. And when you look into them further, it often turns out they've had previous successes, or they had connections, or they've had some other factor weighing in on that really fast success. And, you know, it's not necessarily going like you may become super successful really quickly, but it's incredibly unlikely. So I think that having your mindset in that, like, I am willing to spend years working on this. This is something I'm so passionate about, and this is something that I want to dedicate my time to. I'm happy to to spend a long time doing it, is I think probably one of the best ways you can, I suppose, prepare your mindset for it. I was like everyone at the beginning. I was like, oh, it's not going to take me ages. Like, I've got my plan sorted. Like, I planned it out. I had everything ready. I'm like, I'm going to get this done by this deadline. I'm going to get this done by this deadline, and everything's going to work perfectly. And even if, like, we haven't had anything go like majorly wrong, we haven't had like any any severe setbacks or anything like that. There haven't been any like legal or IP or technical problems. But it still takes longer than expected because you're working with people and events that you can't predict. I mean, like Exhibit A being this global pandemic, that's definitely pushed things back by a few months.
Yep, exactly.
But,
It's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's, I would say that's probably the biggest one. Like prepare yourself for a really long game with this.
Thank you, Ashley. I'd now like to welcome Anthony from Vale Life Sciences.
My name's Anthony Davies. I'm the CEO of Vale Life Sciences. We've been operating for about 3 years. We're established in 2017. We're based in the Translational Research Institute in the TRI, which is behind the PA Hospital in Brisbane. We were set up to commercialise technology developed by myself during my time at Trinity College. And our products are already used by scientists across the world. So what do? We're really focused on cell and tissue culture, and cell and tissue culture has a very broad range of applicability. It can be used for everything from making vaccines to research. In the research area, there's a big problem. So cells are used widely by researchers in every field, in cancer, various diseases, models, etc. One of the problems is that the cells don't give us the readouts that we generally see in the body. It's very difficult to predict whether a drug is going to have any real effect or efficacy when we perform these experiments using cells. So there's been a huge push over the last 10 years to make these models more predictive. After a significant amount of soul searching and analysis, the industry has sort of boiled this down to 4 key areas that need to be addressed. These are relevance. Does the work that we perform using cells mimic that in the body? 2, reproducibility. Can you actually reproduce those results again and again without? This is a key area and has been causing huge problems in the industry, and it's resulted in a huge loss of money, around about $24 billion in 2016. In the US alone. Simplicity. Scientists have all sorts of backgrounds and skill levels. We need to, the technologies need to be simple enough that anyone can use them. And cost. Obviously, the economic cost of experiments and research is always a key factor. We've got a number of products. So the first one is Happy Cell ASM. This is a liquid media. It's actually a non-Newtonian liquid, which has all the characteristics of a fluid or culture media, the media we use, but has a polymer in it which gives it a gel-like property. Now, what this allows us to do is it allows us to grow cells in 3 dimensions. And what we have here is a 2D, this is the way cells are typically grown at the moment in 2 dimensions. You can see that it's flat on a substrate. And we found that actually growing cells in 3 dimensions makes the experiments more in vivo-like. It gives a better relevance to the experiments. So what we have is a technology that allows us to do this easily and reproducibly and cheaply. If we look down here, here's an example of a tumor spheroid, a cartoon of a tumor spheroid, and here are some tumors that we've grown in the lab that mimic the structures very well. This is an ongoing area of research. It's a very, very hot area, and everyone wants to move into this area, but barriers are typically technical and financial. Our second technology is a microplate technology. Microplates are used in every aspect of biochemical and biomedical research, from the very early stages up until the clinics and beyond. It's the standard platform that we use for our experimental work. We've developed effectively a better system for this technology. So one of the big problems is that microplates are notoriously poor for reproducibility. Experiments performed on the outside wells of a plate will differ from other locations in the plate, which means that inherently you have a system that offers poor reproducibility before you begin. What we've managed to do, and this is a very busy slide, but what we've managed to do is actually reduce that variation substantially. And typically we can halve the variation in a microplate, which is offers huge advantages. It means you have to do fewer experiments, half the number of experiments to get the same result. And it's just gives you better confidence in your work. We've also this technology also allows us to miniaturize, and we're able to miniaturize experiments down by 1,000 times, which leads to enormous cost savings in the industry. There are also added advantages. Often experimental material is so scarce, especially if we're using samples from humans, that we need a way of miniaturizing those experiments so we can get more per sample, and this allows this as well. So I'll get into the opportunity. The cell culture market at the moment is worth around about $16 billion. Now that covers a lot of areas. It's projected to rise to 29 billion by 2024. The growth applications are biomedical research, tissue regeneration, vaccine production, and antibody and cell therapies. These are all areas in which we operate. We have applications for our technologies in all these areas. One of the big problems in this, with this is that this is a very large market, and it's guarded very effectively by the large multinational companies operating in this space. One area that we are aware of that is being poorly served by the multinational companies, and so far they have failed in any meaningful way to make an entrance into this market, is the 3D and microplate market for research. This part of the market is a lot smaller. It's worth about 200 million, rising up to about $1 billion by 2024. But this would allow us to gain entrance to the larger market. This is an area that we can definitely get into, and we're now targeting. The demographic, well, we're looking for researchers, obviously laboratory technicians, specialists, people operating drug companies, etc. And we're targeting, obviously, the pharmaceutical, biotech, academic, and governmental organizations. Because of limited resources, we're focusing our attention to 3 geographical areas, and that's Australia. Obviously, it's our home market, and it's a good place to start. The UK, where we have people in our organization already embedded, and the USA, which is the largest single market in this area in the world. The sales and marketing strategy, I'm not going to get hugely into this, but we already have one. We've been operating, unfortunately, on a shoestring budget, but developing websites and trying to generate local uptake of our products with some success, although we could have done a lot better. We currently have distributors in Australia, USA, Japan, Ireland, and Singapore. And really, what we need our money for is to increase this activity. We've got some great technologies; they work extremely well. They knock the competition into a top 10, and we need to get these technologies out there. So really, where we want to head now is to take on a sales and marketing manager for these territories, who has got a broad background in this area. Until the COVID-19 outbreak, our strategy was to attend conferences, which is where you get the best return on your investment for marketing, and also make visits to individual researchers, key researchers at universities and various drug companies, key opinion leaders in the field, who, through my experience as an academic for 25 years, have already know many of these people or their groups, and have ways into this. We have a very comprehensive patent portfolio, all granted, all paid for, all granted, all finished, including 2 trademarks. Finally, our team, well, there's me. So I'm the CEO, CSO. I've a PhD in cellular physiology and 25 years experience. I've worked at several very large UK universities, including Dundee, Glasgow, I then moved over to Ireland at Trinity College at Dublin and spent 3 years here in Queensland working for QUT. Meredith Clark, she's the Chief Operating Officer. She has 35 years of business experience and management, worked for a whole range of multinationals. The other director here is Pat White. Pat is based in Galway in Ireland. He runs Irish Micromouldings, which is a company which makes plastics for the medical device industry, and it makes very high-end devices, medical devices, mostly for the cardiovascular medical area. He manufactures a lot of our plasticware, and he's also been an investor for the last 3 years.
Excellent, Anthony. Very good. Thank you so much. We'll ask a few questions now, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So it's all about really testing new molecules, is it? Or testing new cells? Or what is your technology about? Is it more on the molecules or cellular level, or both?
So what we're offering is, so tissue culture and cell culture, it's growing the cell. But what we're offering are very new technologies in this area. So the way that people grow cells and tissues, or certainly cells in the laboratory, hasn't changed for probably over 100 years. It's almost the same thing. What we've brought forward now is completely new ways of doing this, which make them more effective and more reproducible.
Yep, cool. And I did see a bottle of your product. There's a little pink bottle. And so is it one bottle per experiment, or does that bottle go a long way? So
a bottle of, that's a 25 ml bottle, that's a 4x concentrate. That will give you, depending which format you use, anything up to 1,000 experiments.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that's huge. And are you manufacturing that in Australia?
Yes, it's being fully manufactured in Australia and sold here. Yes.
Excellent. I was really happy to see and glad to see that you have really thought about the IP protection. So that's really good. Heaps of patents there. Anything else that you want to add to that?
So, it's where most of our money's gone over the last 3 years. We've spent a huge amount of money protecting this, and not just getting patents, but making sure that these are bulletproof. We've had some multinationals already try and steal our technology. I won't mention their names, but very, very large American company and a very, very large Japanese company have actually tried putting in competing patents and have failed. So we've got a very clear IP landscape at the moment, and we're very, very proud of it. Actually, we've been very lucky to get the sort of level of protection that we have with these patents.
Yep, exactly. And just last question is, if you were to give one bit of advice to a person or a company who's thinking of getting into like biomed or biotech, what would you say to them? What sort of advice?
Well, probably it's not going to be the right, it's probably not going to be very politically, so I'll be honest with you, stay away from therapeutics. Do not invest. I would be very skeptical, or very, I certainly wouldn't invest in therapeutics or anything that requires any FDA approval or anything. There's a lot of money that's going to get spent. Most therapeutic compounds, there's a huge attrition rate. So to be honest with you, you'd be better off putting your money on a horse than putting it on therapeutics. But that's just my opinion.
Anthony, can I ask you a question about one of your slides?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe I'll get you to share your screen again, if that's okay, and flick back to the slide which had the graphs on it. There was some very interesting graphs on the slide. There was like 3D graphs. That one about the reproducibility of testing, I noticed.
Oh, sure, yeah.
One of that graph there. Maybe if you can just spend a minute on just explaining that graph, it would look very interesting.
Can you see that?
Yes, it is just starting. Yep, that's the one.
So variability with in the sort of cellular environment is really sort of centers around 3 factors. One is temperature. The other is osmotic or water concentration. So the amount of how concentrated your media, the growth media, or it's almost like a blood-like liquid that you keep the cells in, and also pH. So what we show here is firstly that our technologies stop the cells from cooling down. So cells are optimal at around about 37. But if you take a microplate or one of these systems out of the controlled temperature environment to perform some experimental procedures, they get cold very quickly, and this can cause huge problems with the cells. So this one just shows us here that the cells retain, our microplates retain heat 3 times longer than a standard microplate system. The second one is an extremely compelling experiment. So evaporation is a huge problem. If you get evaporation in your microplate system or with your cells, what happens is that when the water leaves the solution becomes more concentrated, and that changes the concentrations of salts, if you're using drugs, all sorts of things. And this can cause huge problems, physiological problems for the cells. So what we show here is that the top trace is our plate, which was put into a drying oven. So we filled a plate with liquid, we put it into a drying oven for 48 hours at 50 degrees. And this shows you the plates here without our technology in it, an identical plate. And as you can see, what we have here, we've sampled across the plate. What we see here is that the corners have lost almost 80% of their liquid, and even the middle has lost up to 20%. That's still far too much liquid to lose, whereas our system doesn't lose, virtually loses nothing, maybe just a few percent in the corners. So our technology here prevents environmental changes, environmental fluctuations, which cause problems with cells. Now, leading on here, these traces here show this is actually cell number. So what we've done, we've seeded plates, we've left them in the incubator for a week under normal conditions. And this plate here, or this experiment here, was done on a normal plate. And we've got a coefficient of variation of 12.7%. And taken with our plates system, our microplate system, we've halved that coefficient of variation to 6.12. Depending on the cell type and the experiment you're doing, these coefficient of variations can be very much higher. Down here showed this is a very compelling experiment. This was done with a 12-well plate, which is the system we're currently selling. This system here is a 384 well, which is the industry a 384 well plate, and this is the industry standard for the pharmaceutical companies. And here we can take our coefficient of variation. You can see the huge variation between the outer and the wells here. And we can take that from 31 down to 13%, which is unprecedented. People have never seen this sort of improvement before under these sorts of experiments. So it takes away all those problems associated with variation within a plate. So if you imagine, this is a 384 well plate. So there's 384 little Petri dishes in that plate, in that SBS format plate. Each one of those will contain a candidate or a test drug. If you put your cells or your test drug in one of these outer wells, it's going to give you a completely different readout from if it had been put into one of the middle wells. So we basically flattened that out to make sure that the variation is very much smaller. And I think we can even improve on this. These experiments were done some time ago. And now with improvements in liquid handling and cell dispensing, we can actually flatten this even more. I hope that explains the experiment.
Thank you again, Anthony, Ashley, and Nagaraj. And thank you for everybody joining us on the webinar tonight. We really hope that you took something away tonight that can improve your future. Hopefully something inspired you. And we really look forward to seeing you here at the Logan Startup Hub in the near future. Keep an eye out on your inbox on Facebook or on Meetup for future events. Thank you.